This is the Environmental Protection Commission special meeting, Thursday, October 19th, 2023. The first piece of business is new business, EPC 29-2023, 55 Pembroke Road, M. Bismeyer Trust and D. Caro, to install a deer fence, remove invasive plants, and install a collection of native trees, shrubs, and ground covers in and approximate to the wetlands and watercourses. The property lies along the north side of Pembroke Road, approximately 1,625 feet east of Mansfield Avenue, and is identified as map number 1, lot number 6. The zone is R2, and it is approximately 1.95 acres. Rick?
Mr. Chairman, the application, as you described, is on this evening's agenda for acceptance, is to initiate the time frame for which a decision shall be rendered, and to allow the commission an opportunity to decide if a public hearing would be required on this application. I've inspected the site, and will be generating a brief summary of comments pertinent to this application, and I welcome your comments as well, things that we should be attentive to as we move through the process.
Do any commission members have questions and comments for Rick?
I just have a couple. First of all, I think I love, these are the kind of projects that I love seeing, where, you know, wetlands are being restored and cleaned up of invasives and native plantings are being installed. But I do have a couple questions. One is, I know some of these invasives are, they're being all hand dug out and so forth, removed, but some of them, especially like the Phragmites and so forth, those are really, really hard to get rid of. And I'm just wondering if there's any sort of plan to like follow up, like if the first year doesn't remove them, if there's like residual roots and things and they come back the next year, like is there any plan to follow up on those, removing those invasives? And the other thing, I just have to, I just wanted to know about the construction of the deer fence and how it's going, how I saw that it looks like a cedar fence with the wire. I just was wondering how it will be installed and like how, because the one thing I've learned is that there's like a million ways to install a deer fence, and different people will say this is the better way, and other people will say this is the better way. No one seems to agree on, there is no one best way, but I just feel that it's incumbent upon us, you know, to try to minimize disturbance in a wetland. So that's my question.
Okay.
Yeah, a couple items. Rick, I'm not sure if they've had work done on over in the back since 1997. The survey they threw out was 97, but it doesn't look very accurate about what's going on in the backyard. So it'd be nice to have a current survey when they did the last project out there, because the pool doesn't really show all the aspects on that 97. So that's one. Second, it looks like on their plan they want to remove a fence. In some ways, that fence now is a demarcation line, preventing from the lawn to start creeping in toward that wetland area. So I'm not sure why they're removing that, because it's kind of keeps, and maybe that was a requirement back the last time it did work. I don't know. That's be interesting to see what the last requirements were. So I'd rather see that, keep that fence there as a demarcation line.
The black metal fence?
Yeah, because you know, grass can creep in there. The other thing that was confusing to me is that whole planting removal and planting put in, it needs to be two different layouts. You can't see.
Yeah.
It's totally confusing what's being pulled out, what's going in. They should make that into two different displays or schematics for us so we can see what's going on there. The other lawn on the other side, the north side of the stream, be great to get some buffer along there. You know, that's definitely, at one time, that is all wetland area, but it's lawn now. They should have some kind of buffer to prevent that pesticides, fertilizers from going into that stream would be a positive. There's some shaded areas also on, I'm not sure what those are on this planning plan or removal plan or combination of, I'm not sure what that is. So that's it, that's all I got.
No questions.
I agree with Bill. I would say I'd like to see a current survey, one that has maybe topo, if it's a deer fence, maybe just thinking about having a conversation about deer fences before, at the last hearing, and I think the commission has been seeing a lot of fence applications, and ones where folks are which, I guess is okay, but folks are coming back to the commission for forgiveness rather than permission on their activities. And we've seen in prior storms the impact the fence can have on the wetlands or adjoining areas where they become a dam for the 100-year storm or a 30-year storm. So I think because we're regulating a regulated activity, that a contemporary map makes sense. And then I think the other question is whether we think we should have a public hearing, and I think I would be in favor of a public hearing. Those are my only two comments.
You are or are not in favor?
To install a deer fence.
I am in favor for a public hearing, and I believe I would like to see a contemporary survey of the existing condition and the proposed activity.
No comments from me. I'd be interested in the basis of the public hearing, significant impact on environmental or public interest?
Impact on wetland and public interest.
Okay.
I mean, how do you guys feel about public hearing?
I don't, it's not that important to me on this one.
Not that important to me, but I do agree that, since we are seeing more fence applications, that it makes sense to kind of, have some guidelines as to what we're looking for.
I think the abutters, I think something with a fence, I think the abutters should be, they will, Rick, they're notified of the proposed activity, correct?
No, only in a public hearing scenario.
So, right, so that's why I think there should be a public hearing.
So it'd be in the public interest.
That's what, yeah, correct, that's what I said.
Right, it also wasn't really super clear where the extent of the deer fence, because to Bill's point, there's that black metal fence, but there were also like some brown wooden structures on the side, and and obviously there's that brook that goes through. Were they suggesting, like, here's the brook, is the fence gonna stop there?
Yes,
Oh,
it does
okay.
not cross the brook.
It does not, okay.
Right here, they were gonna, I know they spent, made sure they didn't
But
cross
on
the
that
brook.
side, there was already like a brown wooden fence, and maybe that's a neighbor's fence, but, on that side over there.
Maybe up in here. The other thing is, I don't believe they were removing this black fence.
The metal fence.
I think what they were doing is taking this piece out and adding it here. But we'll get clarification.
Yeah, so I think Mike's raising an interesting point on the abutters, because as I think about it a bit, if someone builds a deer fence on another side of the property, by definition, that's keeping the deer over on my side.
We should have thought of that with the other.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe that is a good point. That is a good point, actually.
I also wonder whether when we potentially revise our regulations, if we should, kind of codify a little bit best practices when the fencing is in the wetland or the upland review area.
It's interesting, yeah. So would you be in favor of a public hearing or not? Peter?
I do like the idea of giving the abutters the notice. On the other hand, I'm not so philosophically opposed to these fences, so I'm gonna lean towards no public hearing.
Okay.
And I'm having a second thought, because it's interesting, because this is something right on the perimeter of neighbors now. And because we don't have a process that people know anything that's going on unless it goes to a public hearing, it kind of becomes a surprise when it goes up, and they have to react to it or just ignore it or whatever they want to do. I don't know. I mean, we have setbacks for everything else, right? And they know that if anybody wants a setback on a development, they have to go before it, and the neighbors have to know about it. But now we're putting a fence right on the line. You know, one way I'm saying that's like, can be obtrusive. On the other hand, everybody's been doing it for years, so I don't know.
Oh, I have a question for Rick. In planning and zoning, when it doesn't affect the wetland, okay, and somebody puts up a fence,
No permit at all,
there's no permit, they go right up there and put up a fence without,
without even reviewing it on
Okay.
plan and zoning.
so they don't have to come into the office and
No.
go, hey, I'm doing this.
The only thing they have is like around, like in the front yard, it has to do with heights.
Oh, right, because we had that one
The
had to be
pub-
reduced, the one on.
Right, no,
yeah.
Old Kings Highway.
All right. Based on that.
But they do
answer,
not issue a permit for a
I don't
fence.
think we need a public hearing on my perspective.
Okay, yeah, I don't think so either, not for this level, so. I don't think, sorry, Mike, I don't think there's gonna be but it's.
Let me pose this to you. This is my thought. My thought is that we're having an increased, and I think it's for vanity purposes. I don't think the deer are harming residents, right? So it's a superficial, in my opinion, and I'm agnostic to it, I'm not against them, it's a superficial purpose. I don't like the deer eating my hosta.
And
right?
actually, a lot of these plants that are on the list of what's going in there, like the black cohash, the summer sweet, the winterberry, the foam flower, those are all deer-resistant plants according to the Connecticut Audubon. So to keep them from, to protect them from, deer browsing.
Yeah, but the deer can go right through the stream, because.
Yes,
the-
yes, that's
The
true.
deer can go right through the stream. There's a fence on either side of the stream, so the deer can walk right through, can walk right through, right?
Right.
Rick? The deer can, so it's not a closed in, there is a pathway for deer, they just, I'm
And they'll
fine.
find it. If they want the water from the brook, they'll find it. They'll get
So
it.
keeping on my point is, there's been a trend for folks to set up obstacles in the wetlands or in the regulated areas, which are now flooding, and they're not maintaining them, and it's causing harm to the wetland. And I think we found out that the board has marginal recourse to the property owners to maintain the property that they said they would after we grant them a permit.
Right.
And, I could say Good Wives with the culvert that fills up, it's dammed now, right? And that's not even a fence, but there was plenty of lawn furniture from the condominium association that log jammed it. And going back to the fact that planning and zoning doesn't see an application, we're seeing people that have come in and said, oh, I put up a fence, I didn't know, can I have permission to keep my fence? Or I encroached the fence in the wrong location, and we're the governmental body to make sure that the applicant is putting the fence where it should be located and not encroaching on the neighbor's property, where they're,
That's not our job. Our job is
No, well-
is not to, that it's not on the neighbor's property. That's not our problem. If he decides to build a fence on the neighbor's property, that's the neighbor's property.
Well, I'm just saying
Okay,
that
so-
okay, I'm not trying to make a meal out of this tonight on our first application. I'm just saying it's, my opinion is you get a current, then fine, then I would just say, you get a current survey, you have the surveyor demarcate where the fence is currently located, so it's within the boundary of the property. It's not a stale survey, and any proposed activity is marked on the plan.
Yep.
I personally feel that the neighbor, if someone's erecting a fence on an abutting property line, that the neighbor should have fair warning. And if it was a public hearing, they might say, admittedly, I haven't seen, admittedly, I don't know too much about this application, but, you know, a neighbor might say, hey, listen, we got a major situation and all of the vegetation washes up and log jams here, and that fence is gonna cause an issue. And then they're coming back to the commission after we have an approval, and we didn't give them an opportunity to voice their opinion.
So you're saying that because it's in a wetland, there's special circumstances that, you know, someone who doesn't have wetlands on their property, there wouldn't be the same issue.
Right, you wouldn't have a 30 to 100-year storm where all sorts of stuff just keeps piling up against the fence.
The only thing I
It
say on
creates
this
a
one, this
condition.
one's not in the floodplain, like a couple of
Right.
the other ones were.
Yeah,
And also, the objective of this particular application was to, you know, solely remove invasives and come up with a, not only aesthetic, but a conservation value
Right.
plan. So, I mean, I think we should be encouraging them to do that, but certainly we can, you know, request this, this information in a non-public hearing scenario. I'll leave it up to you guys. It doesn't,
Yeah, I see Michael in favor of a public hearing. I don't see anybody else in favor of a public hearing. So, you know, I hear you.
I
hear you.
understand his concerns, but I agree with Rick. I don't think we don't want the next person to say, oh, they had to have a public hearing when they wanted to do this, so I'm just gonna go do it on my own, you know, because I don't want to have to go through that. So I would, for that reason, not be in favor of a public hearing. But I do think that, you know, we should talk about trying to, like, as Peter said, like codify some of these types of applications that we're seeing coming in a lot now.
Do we, yeah, so, I mean, again, I'm agnostic to whether there's a public hearing or not. Do we agree that there should be a current survey with existing and proposed?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Agree with that.
Absolutely.
So
Yes.
that solves that
Yeah,
problem.
no, I think Bill mentioned that because there's too much confusion as to overlays and things like that.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going and what's coming.
Right.
And I think that's, there's a before and there's an after. So, you know, description for you to,
That's fine.
for us to, okay. Is there any more discussion on 55 Pembroke? Okay, move on, old business. EPC 17, 2023, 10 Holly Lane, B Chase and D Chase to construct pool, spa, deck, and other related features in a special flood hazard area and proximate to wetlands and watercourses. The property lies along the west side of Holly Lane, approximately 700 feet north of Middlesex Road, and is identified as map number 9, lot number 150. The zone is R1, and it is approximately 1.19 acres.
so Chairman, the an agenda summary report was prepared to address to explain what the characteristics are of the property and to identify issues that are pertinent to this specific application. As you will note, yes, again, the applicant is proposing to do a deck and above-ground pool on the property. The property itself supports wetlands and watercourses. The parcel was developed under a prior EPC permit.
What year was that, do you know?
Yes, it's right in here. It was in 2018.
Okay, 3818.
Yep. It was 2018, demolishing of the existing house and the construction of a new single-family dwelling. The property, getting back to the wetlands, there's wetlands on the property. There's also, in part, within the special flood hazard area. Under that prior application, the wetlands which ranged from lawn grass to wooded space, are to the rear of the property and also along one side of the property. There's also a water course that borders the other side of the property. The commission in that application allowed for the construction of the home and came up with a drainage scheme that consisted of a couple of very elongated rain gardens to not only attenuate stormwater impacts, but to provide a water quality, fulfill water quality objectives. The house itself was built up and gained a flood-proof certification as well. As part of that plan, the extensive areas of lawn that were wetland, a portion of it was restored and enhanced through planting. So at the rear of the property, there was some wooded space that was wooded wetlands. There was lawn, and a portion of that lawn was taken and replanted with native conservation plants. Additional mitigation under that proposal was these rain gardens that were extensively, they were regraded, added permanent soils, and then extensively replanted, again, for the not only drainage but water quality functions. The applicant under this application wishes to construct, expand a deck, and again, build this above-ground pool, provide equipment, and in doing so, they've come up with a scheme to address the important issues that are raised under applications of this sort. So in the agenda summary, we talk about what the encroachments are. The pool is going to encroach within, I believe it's 3 feet in the pool and deck of the mapped wetland line, which was again historically lawn. There's an additional amount of impervious surface as a result of that. To address potential concerns with drainage, the applicants come up with a drainage mitigation scheme that it calls for regrading and directing an additional amount of storm water to the existing rain gardens, necessitating an expansion of the rain garden in the front portions of the property. Water quality being addressed with the sediment erosion control plan, again, in seizing on the ability of the soils to attenuate water quality impacts in the rain gardens themselves. The project engineer has also certified that as a result of constructing these features, that there'll be no rise in flood heights, and they have some very basic plans in which they claim that they can flood-proof those essential elements by designing and certify them as being capable of withstanding the flooding. I think the important part is, those are all very important pieces, but probably most important to this commission is what are they doing to mitigate the additional impacts as a result of this pool. And the environmental professional did an extensive environmental report of what existing and proposed conditions would be and how their mitigation plan is going to improve it. Essentially, they're taking the existing condition that had been in part enhanced under the prior EPC application and eliminating extensive additional areas of lawn and replacing it with native planting combined. It's meadow and also an extensive list of planting, shrub planting, including Summer Street, Red Osier, dogwood, and then ground covers. They're also doing a demarcation feature that is fairly weighty. It is actually a fence along the limits of the restored space, in part in combination with planting as well. So that is essentially the crux of the application. The town's consulting engineer has reviewed the drainage plan and has some number of more de minimis kinds of questions having to do with the drainage itself that have yet to be addressed. There are some issues with, that need to be addressed on the survey, or clarification. But if the commission determines to go forward, we would certainly have to include a condition to have the final design drawings for these essential components, the deck and so forth, to be designed and structurally flood-proofed to the current standard. Just one aside, the applicant had post receiving a CO on the building, the petition to FEMA to take the dwelling out based on how it was constructed. They successfully obtained that letter of map amendment, I believe it was. However, if you attach the
Yeah.
pool up to
right,
it, they
right,
may lose that qualification.
right.
However, it can be constructed in such a way where it is
Separate.
physically separate from it, a gap between that and the home, and they'd be able to do without disqualifying themselves with the letter of map amendment. So those are things that they would have to do, should the commission decide to move forward with the application. I see that Mr. Devanzo is, did I see Mr. Devanzo here?
He was here.
He's in
He
the
was here.
hallway.
He's in the hallway. Here to answer any questions. I have to go get him first. But that's essentially a summary of what we have on this application.
Good. You want to get them?
Yeah.
Oh, it's
You're up. Who's the applicant's representative for 10 Holly Lane? Okay, just to bring you up to speed, Rick had his comments and et cetera, so I don't want to be excessively repetitive on this, okay, because you guys were outside when the commission was hearing your application.
Well, my apology. I thought that was an executive session because when I came here, everybody was on the hallway, so I thought you had like.
Well, it's not directed to you, it's directed towards everybody. You have to be aware that the commission has, we're volunteers, our time is,
No, I
like this. We don't
understood.
get paid for sitting in the hallway or standing in the hallway. Anyway, let's go.
Good evening, Alexandra Mock, wetland soil scientist, landscape designer, and I understand that we have several issues here, and one is related to the flood zones and the construction of the type of construction we're going to be using for the pool, and then we have environmental issues which are related to the wetland, and I don't know which one you would like to take on first. Maybe I will cover my wetland portion. The regulated area, it's located around the residence, basically surrounds it. There's a little space in the backyard, which we're going to be using for the pool. So this is the wetland here, and this is the proposed pool and the houses of the map. We are proposing a very good restoration plan, and is going to be tackling most of the wetland, which is right now maintained as a lawn. And there's a little stream over here. We're going to be planting shrubs along the edge of the stream and creating demarcation feature. around within the wetland area and restore the entire back of the wetland behind the demarcation feature. We're going to turn a portion of it into a meadow with a native vegetation, and then the edges which are closest to the wooded area are going to be improved with native shrubs to create a gradual buffer or a gradual transition between meadow, shrubs, and then we're going to have woodland.
Can you show us where the upland review area is in relation to the line? And I'm looking at, I'm looking at one of the schematics. I'm not sure I can see that far, but I see the curvature, which is the wetlands, and then,
So this is the wetland,
yeah,
and basically the entire house and the proposed swimming pool is located within the upland review area.
that's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
So it's coming within 3 feet of the wetlands?
Yes, that's the closest point.
And there's no significant long-term impact on the wetlands? Is that your statement?
Well, you have to weigh two things. One is, yes, we are close to the wetland edge, but the other thing is we are restoring a huge area of the wetland, which is now a little bit less functioning because it's all lawn. Also, if you just look at the topography of the site, the entire runoff from the new pool side is going to be draining towards the stream, not towards the wetland. So none of the runoff from the developed area is going to have impact on the wetland. In terms of activities in the yard, the wetland is part of the yard, so this is not going to change. And we are creating this restored area, which is going to be now much better for the wildlife and much better habitat.
So you're saying that meadow area, is that lawn today?
Yes. So the meadow area and where the shrubs are, this is all lawn. So this green area here is the edge of the woodland. And outside of the woodland, along the edges, we're going to have shrubs. And then gradually going down with the meadow. And here we're going to have demarcation feature, which is going to be pretty good one because we're going to using split rail fence section of it in 4 location. And then in between, we're going to have a hedge created by native shrubs.
Are you gonna have a pool fence?
Pool fence, we're not going to have a pool fence.
I have a question. In your, I think it's April 2023 environmental assessment, you also mentioned proposed sunken boulders as demarcation, but then they're not mentioned later on. So did that idea
So that was
get
a
lost
original one, and the sunken boulders were kind
in
of
place of the fence, or?
place where the fence and the shrubs are now. And Rick actually recommended that something more solid, more visible is going to be installed. And this is going to be actually pretty good because it's going to separate the recreational area from the protected area. There's going to be a mowed path here through the meadow, so there will be still access to the woodland if someone would like to walk there and explore. But all the backyard activities are going to be now confined to the lawn.
Will chlorinated water get into the wetlands?
No, because the water is going to be circulated, so there's not going to be a discharge.
And when they empty the pool? To
I don't
wash
think
it, to
that
fix
there's
it, to,
Need, Jacek, would Ren, would you like to address the pool? Yes.
Just state your name for the record, please.
Ren Mikoshinsky for PP Architects. So the pool will be heated, so there won't be any need for draining out the pool.
for cleaning, for,
Winterizing.
Well, you can also take, there will be a pool cover as well, so there won't be any need for leaves getting into the pool.
So, I'm sorry, what happens to the water when we turn November and we need to drain the water?
If the pool is heated, you won't need to drain out the water.
I'm sorry?
If the pool is heated, you won't need to drain out the water.
So you keep the water in all year round?
Yes,
Through the freeze season?
yeah. If it's heated, yeah. Okay, thank you.
One thing I'd say about draining, you can drain a pool. There are rules and regulations about allowing it to, no chemical treatments of it and allowing it to sit for some period of time. And the health department has general rules of how you can do it, can't do it with a direct discharge to the wetlands. You have to, again, chemicals has to be devoid of chemicals, and you can't do it in such a way that you cause erosion or impacts to adjoining properties. So there's ways to do it. I don't think just by virtue of the fact that if the pool is heated, there's no need to drain. Sometimes what they do is they drain off a certain amount of it to get you through the winter and the stormy months, or also if there is a cleaning process that's necessary at some point. So there is the potential for that.
Yeah, I've just seen a few pools where they've had to resurface the pool, or the surface got bleached and there were discolors, but, depends how picky that person is on the pool. I guess there's a regular maintenance involved, but I'll continue to reserve judgment. I would have appreciated, though, to see the upland review area mapped out on this. I know it's within the house and the swimming pool, but I would have liked to have the map where that was designated, because that is within our jurisdiction.
State your name, please.
Yes, Wayne DeVanzo, Fairfield County Engineering. I believe the setback is shown on the survey, and it should be shown on the plan as well. And as Alexander said, it does go through, pretty much through most of the house. It's,
So
it's on there.
you're saying that the upland review area, I'm seeing the wetland line, but I'm not, at least on the maps that I'm looking at here, maybe I'm looking at the wrong map.
Yes, if you look at the plan, my plan from Fairfield County Engineering, you'll see it as a red line that goes through the house. It's this line right here, kind of zags this way.
Okay.
So it's.
So the house is within the upland review area?
Yes, yes.
Okay. That's
More than half.
That's
of it,
what I
would
had
say.
understood. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
I guess my first general comment is, I think I see some prudent feasible alternative to the location of the pool based on the amenity. I see many different plans, so the first piece is I'm having a hard time understanding if there's an ice plunge pool
Right.
and there's a hot tub.
Yeah. And the hot tub doesn't show on other plans, and the ice plunge pool shows in a different location on another plan.
Right, so the plunge pool in Wayne's, in the engineer's schematic shows the, I'm looking for the compass for the record. Okay, so north is the top of the page. So
Yeah.
in one schematic, the ice plunge pool is to the northwest corner of the property, and in the engineer's schematic, the plunge pool is to the south of the pool. Based on the proximity of the pool and considering feasible and alternatives, maybe the hot tub would be contained within the pool. Maybe there wouldn't be a plunge pool. Maybe the pool would need to be located farther from the wetland, or, I also have questions, kind of jumping around here. How much of there's gonna be a disturbance to the wetlands to construct this pool, and Holly Pond is a very wet neighborhood. I'm curious to know how the pool would perform over time. The engineer could probably speak to that with the condition of the soils. If the pool has to be built differently than a conventional pool in dry soils or drainable soils. So those are just some of my initial thoughts. I mean, there's gonna have to be a stockpile somewhere, and I don't see how is, I guess that's another question, is maybe the applicant wants to speak to how they're gonna do all this digging and excavation and construction without causing damage to the wetland.
Yeah, I'm not clear on what the question was about the long-term impact of the pool. I'm just not sure what you meant by that.
Just a clarification, it's an above-ground pool?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how does that do city, does there have to be a pad constructed for that? Is it 100% above ground, or is it 3 feet in the ground and the difference above ground? I mean, there's lots of different ways to build an above-ground pool.
Yeah.
Also, how do you build it within 3 feet of the wetlands without affecting the wetlands significantly?
Yeah, again, the pool contractor could probably speak more clearly on how it's actually constructed. I believe it is partially in ground, sticks above ground, at least partially in ground. I'm not sure exactly how much, but it is essentially an above ground pool. But yeah, we have the construction access, and obviously this needs pretty extensive erosion controls along the wetlands during construction.
Is there a pool guy? Is the pool guy here or no? The guy who's gonna construct the pool, is he here?
I don't.
To answer your question directly, okay, because, it's for, I don't know, pretty direct question. Okay, so do you have the pool guy here to answer the question? Partially in, partially out, part of this, where's the stockpile gonna be? How's he gonna build it within 3 feet?
Ray McShinsky for PB Architects again. We do not have a pool contractor because we do not have a building permit. Thank you.
I just, first impression is, I think there are some applications where I can see an application for a pool, and I can see other situations where, the site is not really acceptable for a pool, and I think this is a tough one. I don't think the applicant's representatives are prepared this evening either, so that's where I'm at.
I will also say, based on what's presented right in front of me, my inclination would be to vote against this application. I'm just one member here, but I need more information.
Okay, so I'm going to add some comments here, since we have a lot of documents to the town, and it looks like you haven't reviewed anything. The engineer has provided a section on...
Wait, sorry.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
We have provided a lot of documents to the
No,
town.
before that, it looks like we have done what?
There's a detail sheet for the engineer, and there's a proposed section for the proposed pool.
I just want to go, before you begin, I just want to go on the record that we spend countless hours reviewing applications, not just this one, but I assure you everyone has reviewed the application. Our questions had nothing to do with what is on the paper. Our questions have to do with what's not on the paper. So I'll just go on the record stating that, but I'll hold no bias against you. Continue with the application, please.
Okay, thank you. All right, so One of the documents that we submitted to the town was for a site plan inspection. The pool is an above-ground pool, and it's located at grade. The existing house does not have a basement, it has a crawl space, but the crawl space is at the same level as the grade. There are smart vents in the foundation that allow floodwaters, if there are floodwaters, to go through the house, under the house. The first floor is above the elevation of the floodplain. Additionally, Holly Lane is flooded multiple times in the past few years, and the house and the existing deck have not been damaged. The existing deck is cantilevered and it has its own footings. The pool will not be attached to the wood deck. Okay, it is a separate structure.
You've just given a testimony that it's above ground pool. Do you know,
Well, it's
is
at
it
grade.
100% above ground or is it partially above ground?
Well, there will have to be a foundation for the pool, and so,
A
yes.
slab foundation?
Slightly in the ground, of course, because we have.
How many feet within the ground?
Well, it would have to be 4 feet, because the frost line in this area of the country is 4 feet.
So we're going down 4 feet into the upland review area?
Well, yes.
Thank you.
However, picture of the back of the house, this is the existing deck. It's not really that far out of the ground. And that's the rest of the house. So, and again, there's no basement. Flood water can freely go inside the back of the house and the front of the house. And the pool will be at the same level as the deck.
So just as a follow-up question is, I'm looking at page 1, design drawings dated 12/1/22 from PB Architects. And it shows a roll cover for the pool. And it also shows the location of the ice plunge pool and the hot tub to the north of the pool. And then if I go to the engineer's schematic, it shows, just to keep it simple, the roll cover flipped and the ice plunge pool, so the roll cover to the north, not from the south, and the ice plunge pool to the south. Which schematic are we supposed to look at to approve?
So
or
the
deny?
proposed site plan was for the ice plunge to be to the south, and the alternative was the opposite. So in other words, the proposed site plan is for the ice plunge to be the south, and the roll cover to the north, and the pool equipment will be also to the north.
Okay, so this is the application, this is the schematic for the application we should be looking at.
Yes.
Okay.
Excuse me, if I may, can I speak for a moment? I'm the property owner.
Please identify yourself.
Yes, good evening. I'm Brian Chase, owner of 10 Holly Lane. I just wanted to say thank you very much. We, appreciate that you're volunteers and you're spending a lot of time and effort outside of your normal job. So we really appreciate the detailed review that you're doing on the property. What I'd say just in general terms about the property is it's just over 1 acre, and about ½ acre right now is mowed lawn. So I think part of what we were excited about for this project is not only adding the pool. I grew up with a pool and had a lot of happy memories with my own family there. So that's exciting to be able to use it with our own kids and create those memories. But we also thought that we'd be able to add back to the wetlands areas. There are quite a lot of deer, and then we did some initial vegetation and adding wildflowers when we built the home. And that's really brought back a lot of the local wildlife, which we appreciate sitting out and watching with a coffee in the mornings. And so the idea would be to take another half of the backyard lawn and create this additional area for wildlife viewing and the wildflowers and whatnot. And so have been working with Alexandra. I've known her personally about 10 years since we first bought the property, to continue to make the wetlands look more natural. Thank you very much.
Has there been any, I'm not sure, has there been any discussion on how you're gonna build the pool within 3 feet of the wetlands and erosion controls, et cetera, et cetera?
I think another question is, this is a very large pool. 22 feet by 42 feet?
Mhm.
That's an immense pool.
Sorry, can I speak?
Of course.
Brian Chase, owner of 10 Holly Lane. We had similar issues when we were constructing this home, so we rebuilt the home in 2019 after we had some flooding damage before. So we tore down the house and built it, and because we are close to the Holly Creek there, we had to do similar erosion control. We also had to do a lot of erosion control. We put in a geothermal system underneath the driveway, and then also added a number of renewable panels on the roof. That's the business that I'm in, renewable development. And so the contractor that we used previously did a lot of erosion control on the creek side especially, and then also on the wetland side that's adjacent to the, not the neighbor behind us, but the neighbor to the side of us on Holly Lane. So it seemed to work pretty well for the previous construction.
Mr. Chase, maybe since you're there, I think I'm just trying to get to this answer of how far down. I think we've heard some testimony that we're going 4 feet down below ground. You're obviously, the home is on a slab, so it is a wetland condition. That's at least in the judgment of the builder of the home. 4 feet down, is that going to be entirely slab supporting the pool? How much of the water line will be below grade?
Yes, and just to clarify, when we actually built the home, we had the option, or at least at one point we were considering adding a basement, but my wife has sort of a fear of basements, and I have allergy issues with mold, so that's why it's all at grade.
Okay.
But it's been very helpful also for flooding issues and not having to have any sump pumps or anything on the property. But my understanding, and our neighbor is a pool contractor, so we've been discussing it with him, and he probably would be the builder. But it would be about 3 to 4 feet down into the ground. And my understanding is there wouldn't be a pad underneath that. He was saying it would be built on a rock slurry underneath that. But as was said previously, we don't have a contractor that's been hired yet to do the work.
Has there been any testing of the water table at that location where the pool would be created? Has there been any test drillings or any indication as to what the water level might be below the pool?
There were a number of, in 2019 when we were building the home, there was a number of soil sampling that was done, and I think you did a lot of it too, Alexandra, so maybe can you answer that? Excuse me.
Familiar with it. So the water table is expected to be probably at 24, 36 inches. It all depends what time of the year we're going to be doing it. So if we're going to have to go 4 inches down, then we're expecting that we are going to be within the groundwater table. So what we're going to do, we're going to be dewatering the basement or the excavation area, and we're going to be using the dirt bag to make sure that we're not going to be affecting wetlands or the water course nearby. We're going to have a pump system set it up. The water will be pumped into the dirt bag, and then the water which is going to be filtered is going to be free to run to the creek. And we're going to have proper erosion controls. We are only 4 feet from the wetland, but if done correctly and we can access from the other sites other than wetlands, we actually may not disturb the wetland area. The wetland is alone, and if something happens and we have slight encroachments, we're going to restore the area as it is today. But we're not going to be driving with machines through the wetland area or access from the wetland area.
Yeah, that's what I was concerned about, because during the construction, okay, typically pools are done with large excavators and so this is obviously sensitive. This is obviously sensitive, soggy area, I imagine, because the water temperature's got to be high. And so the machines are going to sink in and create significant, can create significant damage.
Well, the goal
So
is-
that's why I'm particularly concerned about the, to lay a slab. I guess I'm okay with it. It's the construction of the slab that I'm concerned about. You know, if you could helicopter it in, okay, I'm being facetious, but if it's the construction and the heavy duty equipment that concerns me. Okay, so anyway.
I just have a question. They're showing erosion controls, double row silt fence along the limits of development, but I don't see on here the use of dirt bags and other dewatering. Is that on the plan?
We're going to add this to the plan.
And how deep will the pool be? I mean, because presumably it's not all gonna be one level pool. It's gonna be 12 feet at one point probably, or?
No, that's too deep. For the safety reason, usually pools are at the deeper section, 8 feet, but I'm not sure whether or not, do you have the depth?
Mr. Houston, just to answer your question, first of all, also, as our driveway goes within about 10 feet of where the construction would be. So we've purposely not been repaving our driveway or anything in anticipation of the heavy machinery would, sort of break it up, I guess. But it goes very close to where the driveway is, and there's a gravel area underneath the grass. We were originally going to put a parking area there. So it's quite stable just in that near area. But I think you're right, if you went out a little farther, then it would get muddier and softer.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying.
And Matt, to answer your question, what we were primarily thinking about for the pool is a lap swimming. So it'd have a fairly uniform depth. It doesn't need to be deep for diving or anything, but more for swimming laps.
Does it have it uniform at 3'6"?
I'm not sure of the exact depth, but it was just deep enough so an adult could swim laps back and forth. And, we didn't anticipate a deep pool for the children or anything. There's no need for that.
There's no diving board or anything?
No. Or no slides or no diving board, anything like that. Excuse me to interrupt.
Thank you. No. Thank you for the clarification.
One other clarity question. On the, there's two different wetland buffer restoration plans. One was May 29th, one was July 16th. Is there a difference between the two?
I think the only difference is the demarcation, because the original one had bolder demarcation, and then Rick suggested that it would be better if we go with the combination of split rail plants and the shrubs. So this way would define better the protected area and the mowed area.
As in the agenda summary, the one that they are pursuing is July 16th.
Okay. I was just trying to figure out the difference between
Yep.
the two. But it's the demarcation line.
The fence was on both of them. It was the earlier one that had, it was the environmental assessment that had, from April, that had the boulders.
Yes. And the way of looking at this project is there are going to be short-term impacts and long-term impacts. So the short-term impacts obviously is going to be during the excavation, when we're going to be dealing with the groundwater table potentially high, and we'll have to do some dewatering. But with the use of proper erosion controls and access, we can restore this site to the current state. And the long-term impact, there will be none. We don't have to remove any trees. There is going to be, actually, the long term is going to be that the pool is going to be there, and it's going to be paving the area. But from some ways, it may be actually beneficial because at least in summertime, which is the most active time for the family will be gathering around the pool and is going to be using the deck. So the area of the lawn wetland is going to be disturbed less or visit less.
Anything else?
Yeah, not at the moment.
No questions.
Helen, anything else?
So with regard to the displacement in the, it's Joe Canis in his October 16, 23 email had said that the rain garden wasn't sufficient as compensatory storage for the grade changes in the floodplain. So how will that water be managed?
Yes, that was addressed. The rain garden was enlarged somewhat, and that comment was addressed, and Joe Kness was satisfied with it.
Joe signed on, Joe agreed to that? Do you know if Joe,
Yeah,
the issue came up, and I understand that, you know, I take you at your word, of course, but I want to make sure that Joe's, you know.
Yeah, that
Trust
comment
but verify.
was addressed. We received comments this Monday from him,
Oh.
and that one was addressed, and there were a couple more that we
There
took
are
care of
others
this
that
Monday,
need to be
which
addressed.
is,
And so the thing like with compensatory flood storage, we don't have compensatory flood storage usually in the end. So, but he was commenting on the grading within one of the rain gardens.
Well, he was saying because it's a depression and because once the water's in there, it can't
It
flow
can't
out
flow-
again.
yes,
It
and that-
can't-
that was-
But this was as of October 16th.
right, and that was changed to relocated to another location where
Okay.
it does flow out, so the compensatory basin was altered. And that was, I think, just this past week.
So that's like a third little rain garden area?
Well, it's not a rain garden, it's just a basin that will fill
Okay.
and then flow out to make up for the minor amount of volume or bulk that is in,
Right.
that is in the floodplain, yeah.
What alternatives have you considered?
With regard to.
Pool placement,
yeah,
pool
that,
size? Having one?
That's kind of above my pay grade.
Well, as you can see, the backyard is very tight, and I think the only alternative will be different size. But since this pool is going to be shallow, and for maximum recreation means swimming, so the certain land is needed for the adults to exercise when they're swimming.
So the applicant needs a 22-foot by 42-foot long pool to exercise.
I think this is a question for you.
Mr. Irvin, the primary purpose is swimming laps. It would be obviously long enough to be able to get several strokes in before you're making a turn to then swim back. If it's too short, you're basically just kicking off one side to the other, and you're not really able to work on your swimming strokes.
I think this is my comment to you, is your site is not an ideal site for a pool, generally speaking. The size of the pool that you're requesting is large by historical application standards. So it's a very large pool. It's not a small one. It's not 18 by 30. You're located well within the upland review area. You're located 3 feet by the wetlands. This is a tough one to consider. So I think, just as this is a discussion, I would ask you to consider, what are my need to haves and what are my nice to haves. I would also think it would make sense for you to have your pool contractor come up with a plan as to how the pool is going to be built. Generally speaking, I think, aside from this application, I can't remember one where we've approved a pool where there hasn't been construction documents for the pool. And we need to have an understanding of how that pool is going to get built.
Understood. That's very helpful. Thank you.
And I am a collegiate swimmer, so I 100% appreciate you needing to do laps in a pool.
What happened?
What happened?
Well, I'm very intimidated now to talk about our strokes and kicking off the walls.
And I'd really be curious, because this is the first time I've ever heard this one, is you're going to heat the pool all through the winter? Is that so you could swim in it in the winter?
Yes, yes, sir. That's
No,
right.
I've heard of heated pools all year round. I have never heard of.
Of above ground,
Of an
yes.
above ground
Right, that's,
heated pool.
I didn't make that
Okay,
point.
because once you get down 4 feet,
Well,
et cetera, there's a natural heating there.
Thermodynamics, yeah.
There's a natural heating, but this is gonna be,
Expensive.
Well, we do have this very extensive geothermal system that we put in with the house. So I think the idea is to use some of the excess heat from that, which it goes down, I believe, about 3,000. I shouldn't say the depth, but it's quite deep. And, so we went from very high energy bills now to, sort of $15 a month type of energy
Really?
bills from the solar and the geothermal. So I think that's part of the reason we were hoping to use it year-round.
I hadn't thought of that. Mm.
So I think you've been able to see the commission telegraph to you that your proximity to the wetlands is a pretty tall ask. And
Understood.
I would have, you have many consultants here that I think should, really take some prudence to what the commission is saying tonight. We want you to be happy. You're gonna see you in the grocery store, right? But I think this is a big ask currently.
Okay, well, we do have a lot of consultants here. The one we don't have is a pool contractor, and since there's a very good one down the street, I think we can
I'd hire them.
arrange to do that. Absolutely. Just one slightly unrelated comment, but Holly Creek itself, I thought it'd be interesting for you to know, we have had historically very significant flooding issues along there. Our neighbors at 8 Holly did some changes in their backyard, and Rick required them to put in a bunch of plants, which I thought would actually obstruct the flow of the water, and it's actually slowed it down now, so it's actually improved the drainage in that area, which I was very surprised that was the result. But anyway, we've been very happy on our side of the creek that it seems to flood much less than it used to.
It's a very problematic area, and the other side of the street has basically a swamp, and that's a particularly sensitive one. It was actually the first case I ever heard at EPC, where I was told that there were 3 sump pumps working 7/24, and pushing a lot of water into that swamp. And so the swamp had a certain amount of water. Well, this, normally you take water away from it. We're concerned about that. This was putting it into it and making it worse and aggravating it for their neighbors and for downstream. So that's why we're, particularly sensitive to Lower Holly, to Lower Holly. So I just want to make sure that's clear.
Understood, and understand the sensitivity. The one comment I'd make on the opposite side of Holly from us on Holly Creek is when the water was flowing very fast before, it brought a lot of sand and silt. So I think unfortunately it doesn't even drain as well as it did when we first moved in the area, because of all that sort of excess sediment that built up when it wasn't draining as you say. So maybe it could use a little more maintenance, I would say, from the homeowners on that side, which I can talk to the depths and some of the other owners there.
I would also say that the purpose of the upland review area is not just to protect the actual wetland itself, but a property like this, the acts somewhat of, particularly given the high water table, as a retention area, and putting in a pool, and particularly a sizable concrete or other pad, is a displacement of that water. So it does have an effect on the wetlands. I just want to,
Understood.
mention that.
Well,
And the larger the pool, the larger the pad, the deeper you go, the larger the displacement.
But we certainly want to be very reasonable in the size of the pool and the placement. We're hopeful we can get it built, because it would be great memories with the kids and, a primary form of exercise for both my wife and me. Thank you.
And you asked a great question, and I don't see it on Mr. Devanzo's page 2 of the site plan is the location. I can see that there were 2 test holes dug. Wayne, I don't see on the map, because just appreciate that
They
I'm
are
flipping
right-
through
Can you see it right here?
multiples.
This is test hole 1. It's right near the front rain garden.
Right.
And test hole 2 is sort of near the end of the
Right.
driveway.
So I think what would make sense is that you do a test hole where you're planning on putting the pool. And
Well, those test holes were for retention. We obviously weren't going to put the retention where the pool was, so that's why we didn't do it there, but we could do a
Well,
test
wouldn't you
hole.
want to know the condition of the soil where you're proposing to put a foundation in the wetland, or in the wetland review area?
Not me personally for the retention, but yeah, it is a good idea to know that. The
So I
pool contractor would need
think
to
that
know
would be something you would want to bring to the commission. And the reason why I was mentioning that is because Mr. Brzezinski mentioned that you were going to put the pool 4 feet below grade for purposes of the frost. Your page 2 showed, I believe, 2 feet below the, so going back to the whole point of how is the pool going to be constructed, I think we said 3, 2 feet, and 4 feet of a pad or some form of foundation. So I think we should really be clear on what we're asking for and how it's going to perform. And that's another really good reason why we should have a test hole there.
Okay.
And that's all I have on this.
All right. Since those questions can't be answered tonight,
I agree.
okay. Want to hold us, do we hold this over till,
Sure.
for,
So I just want to be clear that they should be addressing the items that were identified when I explained during the, talking of the agenda summary report, any outstanding issues relating, that have been identified by the town's consulting engineer. And I had notes as a result of this conversation is further discussion of alternatives, how the plan is going to be implemented. Again, it was the updated construction documents, and I would say to ensure that there's a proper certifications. They talked about dewatering in the dirt bag and reflect that on the plan as well, and to ensure there's no, adverse impacts. And we talked about test holes in the vicinity of the pool to assess what the groundwater is. Is that complete?
I think there were some questions as to the pool construction equipment. There was, a good comment from him, which I appreciated, but I'd like to see what, a pool construction, a guy who does it for a living, goes out there and says, I can do this, this, and that, and I don't disturb, I do, whatever.
They're like the
So they
phasing
did-
of logistics, kind of.
Yeah, so. Okay, so we'll hold it, but, okay, now, they'll get back to you when you're ready, we'll have you back in here, okay?
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you, and I will apologize for being late.
thank you. Okay, next item of business is EPC 2023, 29 Brush Island Road, DCC Local Family Trust, to replace a ramp and floating dock with a piling-supported pier ramp and floating dock within 100 feet of Polly Pond and other areas of resource. The property lies along the north side of the terminus of Brush Island Road, approximately 1,525 feet west of Nearwater Lane, and is identified as map number 56, lot number 15, zone is R1, and this is approximately 0.850 acres. Rick?
Extensive discussion was heard at the prior meetings of the commission. Issues that had been raised by commission members and staff had been addressed, and it was the direction of the commission to formulate a draft resolution for consideration, which was done and it's tentatively dated October 20th, 2023. And that's before you this evening.
Okay, does everybody have a copy of that?
Mm-hmm.
Resolutions, any questions or comments?
No,
No?
looks good.
Okay, may I have a motion to?
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the permit to conduct EPC 20-2023 at 29 Brush Island Road.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Thank you. Moving on, EPC 23-2023, 81 Lewarden Road, Oak Lewarden LLC, to construct a new single-family dwelling, drive, drainage, pool, patios, and other related features proximate to the wetlands and watercourses. The property lies along the east side of Lewarden Road, approximately 800 feet north of Cary Lane, and is identified as map 8, lot 8, zone is R1, and it is approximately 1.27 acres. Rick?
Mr. Chairman, this particular application was considered by the commission, accepted at the August meeting, and under that August meeting, the commission determined that a public hearing would be required in the name of public interest. Public hearing was conducted on September 6th, and a significant testimony had been supplied concerning the issues pertinent to the application, ranging from drainage impact to water quality impacts to the value of the mitigation that was proposed. And just to kind of spark your memories here, it was an existing dwelling on the property. It's been demolished, and this is a replacement house with a septic system and public water, along with the pertinent drainage structures that are deemed to be necessary to attenuate impacts. The commission at the time determined to close the public hearing, leaving the record open for some number of items and clarifications for the applicant to address. And those are summarized in this draft resolution that I prepared for you this evening, and it related to some minor modifications to the mitigation plan, clarification as to the final driveway configuration of the impacts and how it would potentially affect an abutting property owner. We had one adjoining property owner appear before last month's public hearing and express concern about the second leg of the driveway, impact on grading trees, and more specifically impact on the potential impact on drainage. I think the quote was, "I don't have any drainage problems now and just want to be concerned and
He
sure
doesn't want
that
water going down his driveway.
anything was not exacerbated." A great deal of the conversation centered around the location of the dwelling, the depth of the basement, and its potential of interacting with a groundwater table, and the impacts on the wetlands, the impacts on the dwelling, the necessity of additional features to reduce or eliminate the impact on the dwelling or on the regulated areas. So I can report that there was a response to each of those items. And in very briefly, in summary, the mitigation plan was modified to include requirements for the removal of invasive mechanically per the request of the commission. The driveway was cut back and amended, eliminating an area of imperviousness, reducing impacts on some number of trees, reducing impact on the stone wall, reducing the grading, which also resulted in a diminishment in the number of infiltrators that attenuate the stormwater impacts with the roof and driveway areas. The focus again was on the basement. So the applicant, in response, it was was pointed out that the basement was somewhere along the lines of 10 or 12 feet below was a 12-foot basement. It was significantly below what was reported as the groundwater levels. The concerns were raised, and in response, they raised the basement floor of the dwelling about 32 inches. They've created a crawl space in a portion of the dwelling. They have continued, even though, because the portion of the dwelling still lies, at least on these initial testing of the groundwater, albeit not in the exact vicinity of where the dwelling was, seemed to be about a foot or so still below the groundwater level. To address that, the applicant has proposed a second drainage system to which the groundwater, any groundwater that is intercepted would be discharged to. It would lay behind the proposed pool and go to infiltrators along with a level spreader to ensure that there would be no adverse impact on drainage or the receiving wetland. So those were the responses, and I need to just reinforce that the public hearing was closed, so there'd be no more solicitation of testimony in those regards. And so I suppose if amongst yourselves you can establish if you believe that your concerns have been adequately addressed. And I have outlined in this draft resolution potential conditions of approval. One other thing that I should mention is in conversations with the project architect is that they will be conducting additional testing of the foundation areas, soil testing to fully verify the groundwater depths. It may be less intrusive than they anticipated just based on what was available to them in terms of soil testing that was there.
When did they do the initial perk test? Like what month of the year was it?
I'm sure it's.
Or like
on the-
season even? You know, I'm just wondering if it was in the summer when the ground table tends to go down, or was it in the winter when it's already high?
I thought it was the spring.
Was it the spring?
If I recall correctly.
Yeah,
but
because
I
you
could be
usually
wrong.
ask that question.
Yeah, I'm a great perk guy.
It should be on the plan. And those were taken in the vicinity of the infiltrators as opposed to.
Oh, right, okay, right.
So-
Not
That wasn't the house.
Yeah, it's not.
That was
where
the issue.
okay.
That was the issue that he said, and he made an assumption, well, if that ground level's there,
April.
then, April,
April.
spring. Okay, so that was my issue. Okay,
Right.
to go there and say, how do I know, and how's this, the poor homeowner is not gonna have, here,
Right.
the
Right,
sump
yeah,
pump going,
yeah.
24/7. So they were gonna go down and do some other perk tests and things like that. So, okay, so we have a draft resolution. I believe the members have reviewed that.
Yeah, okay, so I'd like to make a motion to approve the permit to conduct regulated activities, application EPC 23, 2003 at 81 Leawarden Road.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, I'll make it unanimous.
Thank you.
Matt?
I,
Okay, our next item of business is EPC 25-2023, 1 Rich Acres Road, R. Weibel and A. Weibel to construct a replacement single-family dwelling, drive, pool patio, drainage, and other related activities proximate to the wetlands. Property lies along the north side of Rich Acres Road, just east of Brookside Road, and is identified as map 04, lot 37, the zone is R2, and this is approximately 1.0266 acres. Rick?
Mr. Chairman, this application was for similarly a construction of a replacement dwelling on this property. If you recall, the dwelling was fire damaged and more recently demolished because of that fire damage. The application was accepted, I believe, at the August meeting. It was determined that a public hearing would be in the public interest. The public hearing was conducted in September. Issues relating to resource impacts, wetland impacts, water quality impacts, drainage, the potential impacts on the dwelling and groundwater were addressed. So a significant amount of testimony was provided and had addressed the concerns that were raised by this commission and staff. And staff was directed, the public hearing was closed, and staff was directed to develop a resolution for consideration at this month's meeting. That's before you tonight, and I'm available to answer any questions that you may have.
The commission members have a copy of the resolution.
Yes.
I hope we've had time to review it. Any questions or comments?
No, make a motion for EPC 25-2023, permit to conduct regulated activities, 1 Ridge Acres Road. Motion to approve.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next item of business is EPC 26-2023, 7 Greenwood Avenue, S. Lobalbo, to maintain and/or construct a detached garage, walls, patio, and other related features proximate to the wetlands and watercourses, and maintain a patio and walls installed within a special flood hazard area. The property lies along the west side of Greenwood Avenue, approximately 270 feet north of Camp Avenue, and is identified as map number 6. Map number 8, lot number 142. The zone is R1/3, and it is approximately 0.23 acres.
Mr. Chairman, this item's on the agenda for discussion. It was accepted at, I believe, last month's meeting or the meeting before, and in a non-public hearing scenario, the staff and commission members had reviewed the application and developed a list of information necessary to address pertinent issues and concerns. Mr. Lobalbo is proposing, let's just talk about the site characteristics first, that it is a property that has a reach of the Norotan River on it. It has a fringe wetland that's down by the edge of the river. It has areas that are subject to flooding. Our regulated areas extends not only for the wetlands and watercourses, but areas within 100 feet of the Norotan River, 50 feet to wetlands. The applicant had, previously there was a detached garage that was on the property. There was a wall that was generally along the limits of the floodplain on the property. There is an existing wall along the area, along the edge of the river. Mr. Capalbo, the applicant, had demolished the existing garage, had constructed a new garage and expanded patio, replaced the wall that was there. Also had installed a gravel kind of recreational area in the lower reaches of the river, and had managed some of the vegetation that was between the lower wall and the river over the past, it appears just based on aerials, in the past 7 years or so. It was brought to the town's attention that that construction was not permitted, no building permits. And it was determined at that point that the garage itself was too close to the side property boundary. In lieu of going to get a variance to try to bring it into compliance, that the applicant has determined to move the garage. It'll be
So how
moving-
far was it? It's supposed to be 5 feet, but what is it what was it in reality, or is it? It doesn't really show on here.
Well, there is an existing condition, certainly, that's as part of the package.
5.07 feet.
That's what it's supposed to be, I think.
I can't say sure, but I'm sure Mr. Miller is here to discuss that as well.
Okay.
But we'll get you an answer to that question. But, so he's proposing to move the garage, which, is seeking the board's permission because a portion of the garage encroaches within the 100-foot setback to the river in its new location. Some of the grading, the wall construction within the regulated areas, the gravel walkways in regulated areas as well. He went out, secured the services of professional engineer and environmental consultants to address the concerns that were raised by the commission and staff. And those are, again, summarized in this agenda summary report. In general, a site development plan was provided. The primary structures and features, new garage and replacement wall, lie no less than 36 feet to the wetlands and water courses. Lesser structures, including the gravel recreational pad, is about 20 feet to the wetlands and water courses. I noted that there was understory that had been removed. As a result of this proposal, there'll be no additional trees removed, no additional fills will be placed. There are no direct wetlands and watercourse impacts, and about 2,100 square feet of the floodplain, 1,100 square feet of the upland review area are going to be affected. The engineer was brought in to evaluate potential impacts in water, both drainage and water quality. What was constructed as part of the patio was under the patio was extensive areas of gravel, more than a foot deep, with more permeable kind of pavers. The engineer evaluated it and has determined that that as constructed, that attenuates any potential impacts as a result of the proposed improvements for storms ranging from 2 to 50 years. And therefore, he has certified there was no adverse impact on drainage in the adjoining properties. In terms of water quality, an erosion control plan has been proposed. There's an area of slope alongside the garage that's going to be repaired to, stabilize the area and, attenuate an erosion control issue. In terms of hydraulic impacts, areas in the floodplain are relatively unaffected by, there's just a de minimis layer of this gravel that's down there, and the engineer has certified the absence of impact. One commission member asked for an evaluation of the walls. The first wall that is lapping right up against, or the floodplain laps up against it, has been certified as structurally floodproof in the standard manner that's in our regulations, in the town's regulations. And a wall along the edge of the river itself was evaluated and found that there's no glaring defect in it, and no activities are being proposed with that. And I guess the focus of the application was on the mitigations that have been proposed. And a plan of mitigation has been submitted that includes and it's been tied to a discussion of alternatives too, where they're removing portions of this layer of gravel from alongside the river to expand the natural buffer area, and then a planting plan consisting of an extensive number of shrubs and native shrubs and ground coverage is going to be implemented on the property. Brian Mueller is here this evening. If you have questions concerning any of the aspects of this project, specifically the technical elements, he's available to answer your questions. I can report that the town's consulting engineer has reviewed and has just identified a few de minimis kind of qualifications that need to be secured that before he'll give his final endorsement, but there's nothing of great consequence. And I could go through it if we need to.
You would, please identify yourself, please.
Yeah, good evening, Brian Mueller, professional engineer and licensed in the state of Connecticut. I'm the owner and principal of Mueller Engineering. Really appreciate your time volunteering. Sorry for wasting it in the beginning. I'll repeat myself because I was definitely part of the little shindig out there.
You weren't late for the hearing.
I know, exactly. I even remember I was out there. I mentioned, I'm like, doesn't it start at 7? It's like 7:30 right now. You might wanna, So yeah, no. So I really appreciate your time because you're better people than me. I would rather be home. So yeah, no. So I got called in by Mr. LaBalbo after he got some bad advice from other professional consultants on how to mitigate the situation. And now this is all hearsay, but this is the stories I've been told. There was an existing detached garage. We've provided a historical survey, I believe, from the 80s or late 70s that showed the old detached garage there. And actually, I was pleasantly surprised, but it actually showed the driveway to it and then a large parking area behind the house, which is also one of the comments from Joe from Tide and Bond, where we actually have conflicting statements in my drainage report where it says we decrease impervious surfaces, but then we're providing a drainage system for the increase in impervious surfaces. We did our report specifically in 2 ways. Usually we do an existing condition and just the proposed condition, but in this case, there was an actual decrease from the 1970s survey from the parking area in the back, but we still felt it necessary with the wetlands so close by and as well as the river to provide some type of water quality treatment. And luckily enough for the owner, when he built this patio, he didn't build your typical flagstone patio. He actually used like pavers that with joints with like a 3/8 inch pea stone in between, so it's free draining. And I've seen pictures of 12 inches minimum of gravel beneath it that he compacted it so he put on top of it. And he actually has a splash pad for one of the rear roof leaders discharging on it. So it ends up providing water quality not just for the patio surface, but also for a portion of the roof, which is an improvement in my mind versus the way it was back in the 70s, just discharging on asphalt with cars and oils and sediments and brake dust and stuff on there. So the patio is a big improvement. The new garage that he rebuilt was because apparently a tree had fallen on the old garage. At least that's the story I've been told. So the new garage, the old garage was like 0.7 feet from versus like a foot or so. One corner was a foot, one corner was 0.7. Now this is off of memory, but it was about that. The new garage is like a foot further off, but still doesn't meet the setback. So Rick and I have had, or Mr. Telemelli and I have had significant discussions about different options because whether you guys approve it or not, he still has a road ahead of him with zoning to either get a variance approved, which is probably unlikely because he did it without a permit, or he could move the garage, which will make it so that he moves it 3 feet. It'll be very difficult to move in and out of there with the cars he has in there. Or he had an option of, he discussed with the neighboring property owner to buy a piece of the land to give him that extra 3 feet. And I told him that's his best bet, to buy that piece of land. So he's gonna try to work it out with that owner. That's not really a concern of yours, but I just thought it's some knowledge that I can share. As far as the retaining wall along the river, I did review it. It's not in great shape, but it is stable, and my recommendation was not to touch it. It's right up against that river. I actually was at the property 2 Fridays ago, and we got about 7 inches of rain, and that river was really ripping, and the wall seemed fine. There's a lot of like small trees that are growing out of it, so it's very stable. So I think to take it apart, number one, you would have to remove a bunch of trees and over, and coverage over the area that's giving good shade to that wetland area. Also too, you can't just replace this section of wall along that river. You would have to replace at least one property downstream and at least a property upstream in order to do it properly. Otherwise, you would just destabilize the walls on the neighboring property. So it would really have to be a group application to do that. And I wouldn't recommend they do it anytime soon. I'd recommend to see, you know, some scouring or something happening along that bank, because it is on a turn and there isn't any scouring because some of the stones have fallen in and they've kind of stabilized themselves along the bottom. So it's in pretty good shape for being as old as it is. It's probably 100 years old.
Wow.
So, and then the wall just upland of that, outside the wetlands, but within the floodplain, was an old railroad tie wall that just was backfilled with soil behind it. The new wall was the stacked block wall that has a gravel and the tiebacks to it, so it actually provides more flood storage than just the railroad tie wall does. But nonetheless, the wall is, I've certified the wall that it can withstand floods and the high velocities from those situations. As far as the gravel recreational space he put down below, I did recommend to him that we should remove some of this, if not all of it. And Mr. Telemelli and I agreed that, you know, removing an additional 10 feet and providing additional plantings would be sufficient. The gravel is just a very thin layer on top of the existing grade there. So there's no adverse impact to floodwaters or anything like that on any neighboring properties. And there was some significant filling around this new detached garage that was not there before. He was guided by somebody to tell him to fill that area just in case the building was too tall. So he said, fill that area in. I've since told him to remove it. I mean, it was pretty wicked, the slope that was there. Like you couldn't even stand on it. I'm surprised it even stayed as long as it has with the rain we've been having. There was significant erosion right by that gutter there. So we are going to remove it. It was up against a big, nice oak tree too, so I want to preserve that oak tree. It's right on the property line, so it's no one's tree to really take down. It'd have to be a group thing, and it's also in the buffer, so you guys would have to approve it anyways. It's a nice oak tree, so I'd like to see that survive. But yeah, he's already actually saw him before this hearing, and he's already told me he's already removed that. Also too, it should be noted that all the work that's been done out there without a permit was done all by hand. There was no heavy machinery down there because he couldn't get it down there. You know, so he was a little annoyed that he had to bring in this fill that he was advised to. Did it all by hand with wheelbarrows, and then he had to take it out the same way. So, but that's about it. And like Mr. Telemelli said, these comments from Tide and Bond, the only significant one, if you could even call that, was to provide a DCIA disconnection form, which is pretty straightforward. The whole property slopes to the back, so it would actually be 0 DCIA. But I don't know what's worse, if it all flows to the river or flows to the street. But either way, it's been doing that for the past, 30 years at least from the old historic survey. So that's my spiel for tonight.
I got a question. When you were down there the other day during that heavy rain,
Yeah.
was it overtopping? Was it flooding?
No, it
up
was
on
not
that?
overtopping, but again, that river, depending on the watershed area to it, it might peak a day later or 2 days later.
Yeah.
For instance, I've done a lot of work on the Delaware River, and that river actually
Takes a
peaks
while.
5 days later.
Delayed, right.
So the flood is actually 5 days later, and when I did a job right on that river for apartment buildings, the city engineer actually allowed me to discharge directly to the water course, just provide water quality because he didn't want me holding back the flood water, the rainwater for the peak, later.
So my question was on plantings.
Yeah.
We want to have plantings down there, but how are they going to withstand if we get a good flood and they'll get ripped out? So it's going to take a little more engineering for planning, I guess, to figure out what's going to work there that doesn't get ripped out on a big flood. I don't know the answer.
Didn't we address that issue on Brookside? Remember there were two houses?
25 Brookfield.
Right.
But that was in a swale, that was in a very confined
Yeah,
space.
this is
I
larger.
mean, once the plantings take place, I'm imagining you may get some that get
All right.
displaced.
Okay, well, I
But
just
but-
make that as a concern.
Yeah.
but-
You know,
But my point was just that there are some that are more sturdy and for that type of application than others.
Yeah, I looked at the planting plan. I think there's a lot of low growth shrubs and bushes and things that once they get rooted, and ideally, if the board's okay with it and we have time, we still have a planting season right now, so ideally we could get it in so that we don't get heavy rains, hopefully a lot of snow this winter. I love snow, so I'm hoping for a good snowy winter. We've had a lot of rain in the fall and the summer, so I'm hoping it translates to the winter, because last year it was dry. But yeah, I'm hoping to get the plants in this year so that they can grow. I've done a lot of planting at my own house, and I'm a big fan of planting in the fall, never in the spring, because the fall you get the grow season in the fall and the spring without any weeds or any bugs or things like that. And then the summer, the plants tend to do a lot better without having to be watered constantly 24/7. Because I don't know if Mr. Lavabo is going to be watering them in the spring like he'll need to. And I don't want to lose them because I'm sure there's a bond that has to get posted, and Mr. Telmelli is going to come out a year later, make sure at least 90 or 80% of the plants are still there. So I'd like to try to get them in at least, and I know he's willing to do it right away. And I know Mr. Telmelli has actually dealt with the Lavabo brothers in Stanford on the property across from the river, and he can contest to, once the project is done, they've always maintained a very well landscaped property. It's just for some reason they like to do things without permits. So.
So I have a quick question. Does building a wall on the riverbed increase the velocity of the flow of the river?
It depends. If you're taking away from the existing width of the river, then yeah, as soon as you narrow it.
All I'm saying is based on the existing condition.
Yeah.
If you were to remove the retaining wall.
Yeah, along the river or the one up?
The one on the river.
Yeah.
Would that decrease the velocity of the river? I'm just thinking.
You create a hell of a lot of erosion.
So
right.
It would decrease the velocity of the river because instead of having a sheer wall, you would have a little bit of a slope, right? But because it's on a bend and then there's a roadway that crosses over as well as a railroad there, you would get a lot of scouring across that side. So eventually it would probably eat in. That's probably why the old timers built that old boulder wall there to like secure the slope. Otherwise, those houses might not have any backyard at this point. So I think that wall was probably built as like a safety factor for the property when they, started to develop it or subdivide it or however that neighborhood got developed,
So
years
as
ago.
a belt and suspender way to help the existing applicant and any future homeowners, would you think it would be a good idea to have some type of boulder demarcation, a specific distance from the riverbed stone wall? Like, let's say 25 feet from it?
I'm not opposed to it. I mean, there's no reason why you can't do a boulder demarcation at the edge of the gravel area that we're pulling back 10 feet. That might even give you more than 25 feet. I don't think you'd be opposed to that. I think that what we would have to consider is the size of the boulders so he can get them back there by hand without
Can you
having
get
to.
back there? I mean, could you get back there with the small skid steer?
Can't
Like
get
a
back there with anything.
Like a standing one?
No, nothing. You can, no.
No,
No, so his
really?
wall, the wall uphill from the river there
It's tight.
expands
Really
the
tight.
entire
It's very
property.
Not like the coyote thing.
No, the little ditch witches?
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, some,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what they're called. It's actually named Ditch Witch. Yeah. I've actually been looking to purchase one, and they're significantly more expensive than they were before COVID.
Right.
But no, I've looked into that. Yeah, if you walk the property, you guys can all go over there. Mr. Lavabo would not have a problem with that. It's very difficult. Like where he put the fill next to the garage, that would be the only spot where you might be able to get around, but you would need permission from the neighbor to try to get around there. And I wouldn't want him having heavy equipment down there. You're just going to cause compaction, even though those ditch witches are only like 1,000 pounds, 1,200 pounds, the big ones. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure he could figure out how to get some large enough boulders back there that one single or two humans couldn't move them.
Well, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to make sure they don't get moved.
Something
Yeah.
two guys can't pick up.
Yeah. Well, I think too, I'm sure we'll have to provide an as-built when we're done, especially with the demarcation.
Right.
So if we did that and we demarcated it and we file it with you guys, then it'll be something that's always on record. What I've learned is you can never really, I can never really assume what a new homeowner will do. It all depends on the person. Some people really like to have these demarcations. Some people try to remove them. Some people fill in their rain gardens a year after they get a CO.
Yeah.
Well, we
You
put a proposed on the, as you know, you put
Yeah.
the proposed on the application, and they have a stormwater management report that you'll have to complete on their behalf. And
Mhm.
if Rick goes out there and stuff isn't there and
Yeah.
things aren't being maintained, then
Yep.
that's a call from
Yeah, then that'll be a
EPC.
violation or, you know, yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I think most people, once they go through the effort of installing it, they're not looking to remove it.
Yeah, and I don't think Mr. LaBal was looking to sell this property anytime soon. His biggest concern is to get all his ducks in a row so he doesn't leave some open,
Yeah.
unpermitted structure or activity on file. You know, he's all worried because I guess 6 years ago, their dad retired he was a truck driver in town of Greenwich, and he retired a week and a half later, he died of a heart attack. So they're very paranoid about like leaving their families behind with unfinished business. So that's why he really wants to try to get this resolved as soon as he can. So he's open to, you know, suggestions from the board. You know, so a bolder demarcation wouldn't be a problem.
I'm still a little confused on the status of the garage and the procedure for that, because I don't think the applicant's gonna get a zoning board of appeals approval.
Well, they're moving the garage, that's what.
Yeah,
that's-
if they
The
can't.
proposal is to move the garage.
The proposal is
Yeah.
to slide it over.
I thought the garage, even if it moved, it still didn't conform with the setback.
No, he's gonna move it again.
So he's
So
moving
right
it
now-
He moved it
back,
once.
or
It's moving it,
Yeah,
it's
so
moving
when he
away from the
rebuilt
side
it,
yard.
he moved it a foot off of what it was before. But it's basically just one of those steel garages you buy and they come and assemble it in a day. So he could theoretically undo the bolts that are tied into the slab. And thankfully, he actually poured a concrete sidewalk that's the same as the slab, so he could move it over. The only problem is the maneuverability in and out.
Right, I was
Not-
gonna ask about the driveway. Is he gonna have to move the driveway too?
No, the driveway would stay.
It would stay.
There's not much room to do anything with the driveway. The landscaping there, when he did the patio, prevents the driveway from
So
being
there's
back there.
not, I mean, as I recall, there's not like a lot of room there. There's like some
No.
trees there, so you
Yeah,
would
so
just take the
there's-
trees out and then,
Yeah, no, so if you're looking at the garage, here's the property line. He has about 4 feet of sidewalk next to the
oh,
garage.
before the trees.
Before the planting row and the fence that he has there to access the patio.
Yeah,
So the idea
okay.
was to undo the tie bolts and then just shift it over.
Okay,
And now maneuverability out of this garage, like normal people that use the garage consistently would have an issue. But he has 2 Dodge Chargers in there that he just bought that are one's underneath and one's on a lift. I don't think I've ever seen him drive them. So it's really just like storage he bought the cars because Dodge, I guess, is stopping making these
Dodge
muscle
Charger.
cars anymore. So he bought 2 of them and he put them in there. So I don't think he's gonna be driving them much. It's more like, you know, an investment almost.
Yeah.
so he takes the garage
that might be worth a
apart
site visit
and
alone.
rebuilds it over to the south a little bit?
Yeah, but they're raised.
He takes it apart. He's not like lifting it with a crane.
No, he doesn't
or
need
anything.
to, I don't know how much he needs to take apart. It would all the bolts that are bolted into the tie bolts that come out of the slab, I think you could undo them and probably shift them with some type of machine, like maybe a ditch witch or something from
Okay.
the driveway that'll help move it over, or maybe they do have to do a crane, but I don't know how they would maneuver a crane to pick that up evenly.
Yeah.
Regardless,
Yeah.
what you're representing is that moving the garage improves the condition.
From a zoning perspective, yeah. From a wetland perspective, it's the same distance away.
It's another foot.
It's within the buffer no matter how you look at it. Ideally, though, I don't want to have to move the garage. I'd like him to buy 3 feet of land. That'd be the easiest thing to do, but also more difficult because you got to convince your neighbor to give you 3 feet. It's not a lot, but I don't know how I'd feel if I was the neighbor. So,
Depends on your relationship.
I know. So, I don't know.
Anyway,
Yeah.
okay, so we have the plans here. They have a couple of A and B.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure his A plan would be go to buy the property, because that way he doesn't have to do it.
Yep,
But
yep,
But
100%.
the B is to move it, which is what we have here.
Yep, yep.
So, but in either case, I don't think, you know, he takes care of the zoning issues, let's put it that way.
Yeah, yeah.
From our perspective, it's the same.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's, A or B is still relevant to the application. I don't know, is there anybody else that has any questions or comments on this one?
I mean, I have just a comment. To me, it's fairly benign. So I'd like to remedy this for your client and get him compliant. And personally, if I were the neighbor, I'd be more concerned about the encroaching to the property line than I would be about the additional foot into the 50 feet upland review. So,
Yeah.
so I think maybe come back and figure out the final plan. And I think it's I think it's the only way a responsible owner, I feel bad for this owner that he went through all this trouble, but that's the cost to pay to
Yeah.
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
do things.
I wouldn't feel bad, don't feel bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know what
It is what it is.
I'll tell him you said that.
Hey, listen, he's probably watching me right now. I told him I said you could watch, so, you know.
He's probably laughing, but that's
He
okay.
probably is, he probably is, yeah.
All right,
He
but-
knows I'm a straight shooter, and that's why he hired me,
Well,
because I don't.
And that's the other thing too, your testimony here has been very straightforward.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, I-
much
yeah.
appreciated, yeah.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys being here, so, you know. All right, awesome.
So, Rick, what do you want to do with this one? Do we want to keep it open so that,
No, I think the.
because I think we have enough.
Yeah, we'll be
Yeah.
drafting a resolution for next
Yeah.
month's meeting.
Great. Okay.
But what,
Next week.
isn't he also pursuing the sliver of neighbor's property though?
But that's not
But it
our.
doesn't matter.
Oh, it doesn't
No,
matter?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, that's gonna be,
That's
he'll have to
planning.
deal that with zoning. He'll either try to do appeals and then get denied, because I told him, I said, if you went ahead of time and you still had your structure there, maybe, because you're making a nonconformity better.
Yeah.
But now
yeah.
you did it without
Yeah.
a permit, you know, I mean, it doesn't look good, so,
Yeah.
yeah. Sorry, it's just the honest.
Your
We
telephone
should
number
have
on
you
your
for more
shirt?
applications.
Right.
No, I have a card in my truck, but yeah, no, I try not to advertise my telephone number because I go on referrals mostly. I don't even have a website, so,
Good for you.
yeah, so, well,
Good for
thank
you.
you.
Listen, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Very-
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
thank you guys.
Great
Really appreciate
presentation.
You cannot hear them.
Okay.
It's a special meeting. You can't
Oh,
hear them. I don't know.
okay.
We have approval of the minutes from September 6th, 2023. You're giving Tolstoy a good name?
Yes.
Okay,
And
for-
they have been revised.
by
I
Jim
sent them
Moore.
over today, the edits between Mr. Millar and Ms. Bain.
Okay, great. Does everybody have a copy of those?
Yes.
Any questions and comments?
No.
No?
No, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the public hearing, regular meeting, September 6, 2023.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the next one, our agent's approval, EPC 18-2023, 9 Seagate Road, M. Scardelia.
Digley.
And since you were in Italy, you could practice
Yeah, right.
pronouncing the Scardelia. And to construct a new screen, porch, patio drainage, and related features in a special flood hazard area and proximate to Holly Pond. The parcel lies along the western terminus of Seagate Road, approximately 550 feet south of the Boston Post Road, and is identified as map number 53, lot number 54. The zone is R1, and is approximately 0.542 acres. Is an agent approval.
Yes, can I do this one as an agent approval? It is a property that is a waterfront property on Seagate Road. It's characterized by, there's an area of tidal wetlands that are just off the site into the sound. We've had those wetlands flagged and shown on the survey and site development plan. There is a seawall, there's areas of flood hazard, there are no inland wetlands on the property. So the resources that are on this property, aside from the estuary embayment, Holly Pond, which we have the 100-foot setback, is that there's tidal wetlands, modified escarpment, and special flood hazard areas, and a very narrow little piece of shorelands, which means the area that's not subject to flooding. The dwelling itself is subject to flooding, and they are proposing is that on that southern plane of the house to do a small pier-supported expansion to deck slash three-season room. Relatively small amount of excavation, only for the footings, and a drainage system has been proposed to attenuate some of the drainage impact, but less so, or more so, it's for water quality purposes. So there's a small infiltration system that has been proposed. Again, significant setbacks to the edge of the pond itself. There's approximately 2,200 square feet of the upland review area and special flood hazard area that are affected temporarily or permanently for construction. The setback is between the ranges of 70 and 80 feet to the edge of the pond. and it is all manicured surface. The engineer did a drainage plan and water quality plan. It involved Cultex. They've secured the town's consulting engineer's approval for the design and what the impact is. They've, water quality is erosion control plan, and they're utilizing infiltration to assist in the collection of, or deep sumps and bell traps and things in elements of the structures. They use infiltration to attenuate, temperature and other water quality impacts. They demonstrate compliance with the flood regulations in that the proposed improvements are not a substantial improvement. And we have the detailed accounting of cost of the dwelling for market value and the cost of the improvements. And there's conditions that are laid out in the agent approval that include elevation certificates demonstrating post-construction affidavit of costs, et cetera. And to address the visual and aesthetic requirements of CAM, but also of areas of interest to this commission, they did come up with a landscape mitigation plan as well. There is some native planting down along the edge of the water, but they've expanded it. And they did it in a fairly intelligent manner, is holding it to the sides and maintain their visions of view. But they are displacing lawn and to improve the water quality and promote the filtration of development on the
But not a
on the
lot,
side.
right? I mean, it's just kind of up against that one area there.
They're doing it on a couple sides, but they are doing probably 60 or 70 plants.
Oh,
So,
okay.
and a lot of it is low growing and maintain the
Okay.
view. It was done by Environmental Land Solutions too.
Okay,
So it's a decent plan.
okay.
So I've wrote it as an agent approval with the pertinent conditions. And I don't know if you had any questions or changes or issues with it. There's no really need for a vote on these things.
Anybody have any questions or comments for Rick?
Not on.
No?
They did a good job on it ultimately. It took a while for us to get
Okay.
there, but
Moving
Yeah.
on,
they did a good job.
moving on,
Thank you.
EPC 27, 2023, 11 Stony Brook Road South, G. Delelio. Okay, to install a new generator related features approximately the wetlands, water courses, and special flood hazard areas. Property lies along the west side of Stony Brook Road South, approximately 575 feet south of Stony Brook Road, and is identified as map number 19, lot number 23. The zone is R1, and it is approximately 1.02 acres. Another agent approval.
Yes, very simple agent approval. It's for a generator and a associated propane gas tank that they want to install on this property. There's a reach of Stony Brook on the property. There's and some fringe wetlands associated with it. I think for those of you who went there, the area is lawn grass. There will be no loss of significant vegetation, maybe a few foundation plantings. It's kind of de minimis kind of excavation that's necessary. They're removing the excess fill from site. They have an erosion control plan that they've proposed. They've avoided the floodplain that's on the property. They were able to avoid the floodplain just by virtue of the fact that it's within 100 feet of
We're just talking about a generator
the brook.
pad, right?
Yep. And so it's
Yeah, so what's that, 3 by 3?
it's very small. I think they very conservatively estimated that 20 square feet is going to be affected by the project in total. And it's 82 feet to wetlands and 92 feet to the water course.
Yeah.
So
It's not a no-brainer.
so again, it's very simplistic and
Just a quick question. Do they have to worry about, there's no flooding issue for them, right?
not for these. Well, they have flooding on the property.
But not up against the.
No, it's not against.
It's 80 feet, so.
But the reason why I was asking is the generator manufacturers now, they've made a very good business now of all these different systems to have the generator above the ground. Is rather than just sticking it on a pad in the backyard, either like clipping them on the side of the house
Yeah.
and holding a big generator, or having like some type of cage system now where they have it up.
Well,
Yeah.
the ones that are in the floodplain, we do them all the time. They're on some form of a platform or a monolithic
They bring them above the
core. and you put them so that the base of them, that are on top of the platform, is a foot above the base flood,
Yeah.
projected base flood elevation.
Well, that's become what I'm saying is that's become mainstream, is taking the whole commercial platform and bringing it to residential. So when you see like a really good primo job, you're like, why does all the generator, air condensers and everything all up on these platforms with the line sets through like the channel and everything?
Yeah,
You're starting to see those pop up around areas.
yeah.
Didn't we have a case, I'll call it June, where there was a guy off of Tokenique Road and that wanted to raise a generator pad?
Yeah.
Whatever happened?
Well, it wasn't generator, it was like air
Air conditioning,
Yeah.
yeah.
Condenser units. It's still pending.
Still pending,
He
okay.
still has to, you know, the one thing that is important is he had a very, very old survey with old depiction of the flood zones, with an old depiction of the wetlands and so forth. So it's a very simple thing. He just has to update his survey. So he's been in the queue of Darienne's very busy surveyors, trying to get him just to do the update. And he already has a plan to elevate it on a flood-proof platform.
Okay, so that's, okay.
So
just-
that should be
Sorry,
rolling in here in the next
okay,
month or so.
all right. Any other business from anybody? May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn the special meeting of October 19th, 2023.
All in favor?
Second that.
All in favor?
There we go.
Thank you, Channel 79.